In my prone plank position, I'm going to lay flat out on the floor. I'm going to have my elbows right over top of my shoulders and use my forearms as support. At the other end, I'm going to use my toes also as support, and I'm going to engage my core by pushing my belly button to the spine. The idea is just have a straight line between my shoulder, my hip, and my ankle without sagging in the middle. But vice versa, not having my hips too far going past my shoulders. So in this position, I'm just going to stay nice and calm and breeze through. As you can see, I should have a straight line between my shoulder, my hip, and my ankle. Again, in this position, I'll cue my clients probably just to not sag their hips, be tight in their core, and control their breathing. The next exercise that we're going to do, just sit back a little bit, is going to be the squat, the back squat. So Connor already has his feet nice and set. He has a bar on his shoulder. I'm going to make sure his feet are firmly planted on the floor before we start. His core is going to be engaged. And I'm also going to make sure that his shoulders are nice and relaxed so he's not doing a shrug as he drops into his squat. So while in this position, I'm going to have him take a big deep breath. As he blows out, he's going to transition his hips all the way down to the ground. In his squat, he's going to make sure that his knees are behind his toes and he's dropping his hips. Keeps he going. Good. He's sitting back on his heels and he's going to make sure that his heels don't come up. In this position, when he drops back down, I'm going to have him just hold for a second and just wiggle his toes. If he can wiggle his toes while his heels are on the ground, he's in excellent position. Good. Let's just try again. Try to engage your core. Try to sit back a little bit. Good, that's a good squat. Good, and one more. Good, so my cue for my client would be not to rush, keep your heels on the floor, and make sure your core is engaged all the way through. So we're going to talk about the next phase in our resistance training, and that's the barbell press. So Connor has a barbell. We're going to talk about his feet and work all the way up to his shoulders in this exercise. We're going to make sure that Connor's feet is firmly planted on the floor. It could be probably both shoulder width apart or hip width apart. We're going to move up to the bar and his hands placement. His hands are going to be an overhand placement, his palms facing down towards the floor, and his grip's going to be slightly outside his shoulders. I'm going to get Connor now to take the barbell to his shoulder, just by bending into a reverse hammer curl, just underneath his chin where he's going to rest it. In this position now, Connor's going to engage his core. He's going to help use his core to stabilize his back against the pad. On exertion, Connor's going to push the weight straight up to the ceiling, pause, and then come back down. Good, keep going. As Connor's going through this exercise, we're going to make sure that he's breathing on exertion. On the way down, he's blowing out all his breath. On the way up, sorry. And on the way down, he's taking in some air. Again, he's nice and controlled, moving through the full range of motion of his shoulders. Pausing on top to ensure that he has a full tension on his shoulders. Good. It's always hard to explain. So now we're going to talk about the barbell curl. Once again, we're always going to start from the feet and work our way up to make sure we're nice and supported. So Connor's feet are going to be shoulder width apart, and they could also be hip width apart as well. As we travel up his body, he's going to engage his core. So I'm going to have Connor in this exercise, so he's not using the pendulum and swinging, is to have him push his hips forward a little bit, squeezing his glutes in the back. He's going to engage his core by pushing his belly button to the spine. Once again, he's going to round his shoulders to the back of the room to cause that straight line in between the shoulder, hips, and his ankle. From this position, Connor's going to make sure that his elbows are nice and tight to his body, and he's going to use that as a pivot point as he curls the bar right up to his chest. Good. So while Connor's moving through this movement, you've got to make sure the movement is nice and smooth. As you can see, Connor's not using his waist to build momentum. It's nice and smooth as he travels up and down. And again, when the bar is coming up, he's blowing out his air to make sure he's not holding his breath. Good. And one more. Great job. Now we're going to move on to the bent over row. In the bent over row, Connor's going to have his feet hip width apart or a little bit wider shoulder width apart. I'm going to have Connor engage his core before he starts reaching for the bar. In this motion, he's going to push his belly button to the spine. Now I'm going to have him drop his hips and bend down into a squat-like position to pick up the bar. Hands are going to be pronated facing his body. Go ahead. Good. Keep the bar straight up. Good. Let's just stand straight up. So in this position, the bar is now at his waist. What I'm going to have Connor do now is engage his core a little more, and now he's going to use his hips to lean forward until his chest is over top of his laces. Go ahead. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Good, stop. So in this position now, I'm going to have his head come up straight up, facing the camera. Okay, I'm going to round his shoulders to the back of the room. Great, so now he's in excellent position. So his back is nice and straight. So if I had Connor turn around in this position, go ahead and face the other way. Okay, bent over. Good. You can see he has a nice little straight back here. Push your shoulders to the back of the room. Good, and his head is nice and firm and is up. In this position here, I'm going to have Connor drive the bar right underneath his chest, squeezing his scapular muscles. Good. He's going to come nice and wide with his elbows as he pulls all the way up. Good. Another version of this, as Connor drops the bar, is now he can tuck his elbows closer to his body, and he's going to drive his elbows to the back of the room. Go ahead, Connor. Good. So we're just moving from the upper back and the mid back, changing angles a little bit. Good. Great job, Connor. So our next exercise is going to be the adduction. Okay? So Connor's lying on the floor, nice and straight, ankle in line with the hip, hip in line with the shoulder. I'm going to have Connor engage his core. Nice, take a deep breath. I'm going to have him raise his leg until he feels comfortable. Good. In this position, he's going to pause and then slowly come back down. So what I'm going to do is, while Connor is continuing to do this exercise, is add a tempo count. I'm going to make sure he's nice and controlled, and the tempo count will allow him to do that. He's going to go 2 seconds up, 1 second pause, 3 seconds down. Good. Nice and controlled. Good. 2 seconds up. 1, 2. 1 second pause. 3 seconds down. 2, 3, 1. Good. While Connor's finishing up a couple of more reps, I'm going to make sure his core is engaged, that his hip and glutes are doing all the work as he's adducting his leg all the way up. At the same time, he's breathing through every movement. Good job, Connor. Oh man, you're a fucker. This exercise we're going to do is this sit-up. Connor's feet is firmly placed on the floor. His knees are close together. And his core is engaged. He has a nice flat back before he starts. His hands are crossed across his chest, holding his shoulders. And have Connor take a nice deep breath. He's going to come all the way up and place his chest above his thigh. Good. And then come back down. So he's nice and controlled as he comes down. As Connor comes up, I'm going to have him keep his knees together so they don't flare out outside his shoulders. Good. Again, once he comes up on exertion, I'm going to make sure he blows out on top of his sit-up and taking some air in as a way back down. Good. Let's do 2 more. It's really important when Connor's going through his sit-up that he's nice and controlled, his feet stay on the floor, and once again, he's not building momentum by slamming his back into the floor and then coming right back up. Yeah, good job. So now we're going to move into the deadlift. With the deadlift, we're also going to start from the bottom and work our way all the way up. So Connor's feet are going to be shoulder width apart or hip width apart. In this exercise, for the deadlift, I like to have my clients have a little wider base of support, so it has more chance of them to be nice and sturdy and supported as they go, and then having their feet being too narrow. So this stance that Connor has is pretty good. Okay, so we're going to move the way up. We're going to make sure his knees are nice and soft. So he's going to bend his knees slightly, probably about 3 to 5%. And in this position now, we're going to engage his core by pushing his belly button tight against his core. So what I like to do with my clients is have them do 2 or 3 shadow pickups, is what we like to call it, in this deadlift. So he's going to use his hips and his trunk as a pivot point as he bends over, making sure his chest is over top. He's going to pause, grasp the bar, but not pick it up, and he's going to come all the way back up. Good. Do that one more time, Connor. So as Connor is traveling down, I'm going to make sure that his knees are bent, his heels stay on the floor, and he has a flat back, which he does here. Good. So on his 3rd time now I'm going to have him pick up the weight. Okay? So as he picks up the bar, he's going to pretend he's going to scrape the bar along his ankles, and all through his shin, all the way up through his knee. And as he comes up, he's going to stop at the thigh, squeeze his glutes, and then slowly control it down to the floor. Go ahead, Connor. So bend his knees, core nice and tight, pick up the weight, hips come forward, and then come all the way down. Keep going through the movement. So as Connor goes through the movement, I'm checking many things. I'm checking his feet to make sure they're on the floor. I'm checking his knees so they don't go over top his toes, and make sure his core is engaged as well. And at the same time, he's not building momentum by pushing his hips forward. So this time I'm going to have Connor go all the way down. I'm just going to recorrect his form here. So in his form, as you saw, he had his knees were hitting his elbows. So in this one, I'm going to get his arms outside his knees. Okay, so now this time he's going to bring the bar closer to his ankles. And now he's going to transition the weight straight out. Perfect. Good. And then drop it down nice and controlled. Bend at the knees. Back nice and flat. Good. And let's do one more. So I think that's a lot better for Connor now. Go ahead and just drop the weight nice and slow and controlled. And then stand straight up. Hi everyone. So here we're talking about our chest press. So we have Connor now on a flat bench. Before Connor starts, going to make sure his feet are on the floor. I'm going to tell him to engage his core before he even lies back. This will allow his back to remain straight as he lies on the bench. Go ahead and engage your core, push your belly button to your spine, and come all the way back. Good. So Connor's in an excellent position right here. His feet are on the ground. His back is nice and firm and flat against the back of the bench, and his tummy is nice and tight and engaged. So in this position now, I'm going to have him push his hands straight up to the ceilings. Good. I'm going to pass the bar right across his chest. So this is Connor's starting position. Note he's nice, his elbows are nice and strong in a extension position. Again, his palms are facing up, core engaged. As Connor drops the weight down to his chest, I want to make sure he's nipple line across, dropping his elbows into 90 degrees. Go ahead, Connor, go ahead and drop down. Good. Go ahead, do it again. While Connor extends all the way up, he's going to make sure he's going to engage his chest by holding and squeezing at the top of this lift. Okay, let's do one more. Connor reps is going to be in between 10 to 12 reps. My control cue for him would be nice and control, engage the core, breathe on exertion. This is our tricep press down. It's a little modified today, but we're going to have our feet set at shoulder width apart. As I turn and face the toner bands, I'm going to engage my core by pushing my belly button to the spine. I'm going to make sure I'm standing nice and tall and I'm supported through my legs and my core. I'm going to grasp the toner bands with my palms facing together, making sure I have a 90 degrees between my shoulders, my elbows, and my wrist. As I go through the movement, I'm going to press straight down, extending my elbows to the floor and pulling away slightly. I'm going to hold for a count of 2 and then slowly raise back up to 90 degrees. As I'm going through this exercise, I'm going to make sure my core is engaged and I'm not using a swinging motion. So I'm not using my knees or my hips to build momentum, to push the toner bands down. So again, I start at 90 degrees, nice and tight through my core. I'm going to press straight down. Hold for a count of 1 or 2 and then slowly come back up.